Okay, we're recording. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Breakthrough webinar number 2 of this series of 3. So tonight we're going to explore what is breakthrough and go into things in a little bit more depth. I am here as always with the lovely Terryann. You can say hello.
Hi, everyone. You must all kind of know me, or if you don't know me, senior instructor of Breakthrough.
Yeah.
I was just trying to figure out how to open the chat box. I've got it open. Please ask
Okay.
questions.
Yeah, the bottom you can click on.
We can even unmute you to have a little bit of a repartee if we like.
If you want to come on, but let us know if you do or not. We won't force you. But obviously anything that you share will be recorded and sent out. So just to highlight that.
Yeah, because we need to highlight those things these days. Yes, you will be recorded. And and also, sorry.
No, carry on.
What were you going to say?
No, it's okay, carry on.
Okay, so it gets Breakthrough is definitely interactive. It's not work you do just sitting around by yourself. You could do some things, but it's not me sitting around lecturing you about what life is about. This is an exploration of what life is about. So it kind of makes these webinars, when they're not interactive, makes them a little bit difficult, because we need that interaction, because there really aren't any wrong answers when there's a question. But there are ways to look at what we're doing in a deductive way. Like, for example, one of my favorite examples is freedom, right? So often people go, yes, of course I want to be free, except. So the minute you put an exception, freedom is an absolute. You either have freedom or you don't. And the moment there's an exception, well, then it's no longer freedom. So if we want freedom, well, yeah, we want freedom, but we can't say, no, I want freedom, but I also want my husband to take out the garbage, right? What is this? Oh no, I just saw some things coming up on the chat.
Yeah, I know. Don't worry. I'm just having conversations.
I won't.
Don't worry. I'll monitor it. I'll tell you if there's anything to look at.
Like, audio settings. What? Right. So what we're going to look at today is what first of all is breakthrough. And I brought up freedom because, to me, that's what breakthrough ultimately gives me. When I went on my quest as a kid, I wasn't even a teenager yet, and all I wanted was freedom. And as I got towards 15, 16, everything, I even went back and saw my writings, and everything was about why, 15-year-old brain, right? Why all this conflict? Why is there all this conflict, right? So spending my life, I knew that all my conflict was in my mind. It wasn't my finger having an argument with my fingernail, right? That wasn't going on. It wasn't my knee arguing with my elbow. It wasn't, my liver jumping out of my body saying I need to be free and I'm going to go off and live my own life. And so it wasn't the physical body, and it was just the thoughts, my mind, what was going on in the mind. It was conflicting. So listening to someone else, listening to their thoughts, seeing their contradictions, right? You can listen to someone and you can hear the contradictions, and the contradictions would ultimately, for me, the way I perceived it, was bring suffering.
Yeah, and then when you mean contradictions, you're meaning someone saying one thing and behaving another way.
Could be, or they could actually have two opposing beliefs that they state within. They could do it within seconds.
Oh yeah.
I could do it within seconds and not remember that you had the opposing belief. So clinicians know this quite often. a person can come in and you say, well, do you have any symptoms? No, I don't have any. Oh, okay. So let me check you out. Well, doctor, I have this buzzing in my ear. I have a right hip. So we're constantly, in this contradiction. As somebody will come in and I'll say, so have you experienced any changes from your last session? No, I've experienced none. And then I'll pull up their emails where they're showing that their breathing has expanded. They have, they found more space. They're not arguing with their husband as much. So there's.
Oh yeah, we have to apologize for Terryann's bird.
Yeah, he's really just, okay, sorry. Okay. Sorry. So it's not the bird. So you see these we can't even see where we've changed, Somebody said to me, it's actually Esther who wrote this to me. I have this spinal issue that's causing difficulty for me to walk, etc. So, over the years, anytime I would see this minute change, it was just the most exciting thing for me because it's like, oh yay, it's changing. It's not something that's just sitting there. And Esther wrote back to me once and said, wow, you unceasingly, I marvel unceasingly how the tiniest little changes, just give you so much hope, I guess. It wasn't exact. That's not an exact quote, but I found it interesting when she wrote back, and I thought, wow, that's an interesting commentary, because that would be a huge difference to notice between, I recognize all these tiny, tiny little movements in my health. And that helped me to support my clients in seeing, oh, they're not noticing. They're not noticing at all these tiny, tiny changes. So they remain in this generalized view of, I can't breathe, so let's do a session and I'm going to breathe. If I'm not breathing the way I think I should be breathing, then I'm in conflict, right? So those are some tiny little things that we see as contradictions. Okay, so we're living. We often follow. Well, this is what we're looking at in Breakthrough, is that we're under this spell of our minds, right? It's very complex how we would fall under that spell, but primarily we can look at 0 to 4 years old, or even from the moment of conception, that we have undifferentiated consciousness. And in that period of time, all our identities go in. And those identities are the wounds. Those are things we do not want to be, whether it's a disapproving look from someone, or whether it's our own genetic predisposition to not like something. Whatever ways you want to explain this, it's just to make sure that we're not blaming anyone. There is no blame. It's the way like the chips fall, I guess, in what you're going to determine as a tiny little child is acceptable or unacceptable to you. Oftentimes parents blame themselves and think, how am I going to stop the kid? Well, you can't, because I was just talking to
doesn't matter what you do.
No, it doesn't, because so many people right now have really good childhoods, and they're still in conflict. They're still unhappy, not in everything, but they still have these conflicts going on. And they often wonder why, and they feel really guilty when they've had such great parents. Like, oh my God, I've had a great childhood. Well, yeah, because you're a human being. Sorry to let you in on the big mystery.
That old chestnut again, being a human being.
What was that?
That old chestnut of being a human being again, getting in the way.
Exactly. It consistently gets in our way, that this humanness, this fallibility, this even just being, we're going to do this really quickly right now, but if you sit and meditate on what it's like to have completely undifferentiated consciousness, meaning you're not accepting or rejecting anything, in a way, it's almost like full self-realization, right? It's like everything is part of me and I am part of everything. And then, of course, it shuts down. So the human being has to go through these stages, unless, you're the Buddha and you pop out of your mom while she's, giving birth on the Bodhi tree, and you pop out and you're walking and you speak eloquently all of the mysteries of the universe. But,
Straight away. Yes.
I wasn't that person. I had to go through it. If you're lucky enough to have done that, good on you.
You're
right?
the closest one I know, but
But mostly it's been sort of fantasy, right? So here we go, right? We're born. We have to go through this whole process, and you can look at it in all the ways you want: ego, id, superego development, where we don't know we're separate, and then finally we realize we're separate, etc. Any way you want to look at it, you can just watch a child. It's phenomenal, just watching kids grow up, and then we all go through a particular pattern, even though we notice each child is different. So those are things I observe. I don't like to just buy into something. Even Freud or whoever we're looking at, I don't buy into it. I look at a kid and I go, well, it's obvious to me. Each child is a little bit different, okay, but they're very similar patterns we go through. Okay, some kid comes out of, goes into the ego stage, and like we call that period of 2 years old, the terrible twos.
Oh, yeah.
And, some people say it doesn't exist, right? So what is it a parent is doing during that period where the child is now experiencing terrible twos, or does it have to? I look at my nephews and I don't see that they went through terrible twos. Whatever they did then, they're still doing now. So yeah, they don't have that. They
terrible
didn't have
2 decades.
But I've seen those kids who are tantrumy, get on the floor. So that's when the parent needs to kind of look at themselves and see what, like, if we go back to the beginning, the first thing I brought up here was freedom, right? Obviously, we can't just say, let the kid do whatever they want. But I require within myself the capacity to have enough freedom of thought that nothing entraps me in a position that I would have to rebel or conform to. That would be at the minimum what I would do for myself. And then the next thing would be, I do need to give parameters to those around me because of what my needs are, though I don't need them to meet my needs. But I would say, okay, if I'm respecting myself and my needs, then let's say you have a husband, wife, whatever, and you are living together and you are respecting each other's needs, right? Like, I don't necessarily like to watch what my husband likes to watch, but I don't stop him from watching what he wants to watch. I go into another room to watch what I want to watch, or read a book, or do whatever, so that I'm not, agitated by whatever he's watching, and then when he's watching something that I enjoy, I come in and watch it. There's no argument, no debate, no nothing. So if we've got arguments, you can imagine a couple arguing about what's on television. This is all goes back to childhood, right? It's, you don't love me. Right. So if I feel I respect myself, I love myself, well, obviously I've attracted a man who respects himself and loves himself. So we don't run around demanding love from the other person. He just loves because he loves himself. So there's this other love to go out to me, right? If he was just loving me, then there would be an emptiness within him. And I'm making this very, like 2 + 2 = 4, but it's a good idea to understand that if you've respected yourself enough to meet someone with your own values, and you're not running around saying, well, when I met you on our first date, you told me
said you like romantic comedies and now you don't like them.
Exactly. Or you don't watch sports or whatever, this big, first date binding contract that
Yeah,
we make on a first date. It's hilarious how many people say, well, he told me and she told me. It's like, well, yeah, but you didn't sit down and discover what the heck you guys were doing before you got married or whatever. And it's interesting, as you get older, you figure these things out, right? It's a
yeah.
fascinating thing. In any case, so what I'm trying to propose here is the idea that, of course, we want freedom, but ultimately, I think our freedoms can come from, I have personal health, and that's psychic health. It's not. It's a good, healthy mind. It's a healthy sense of I love myself. This isn't about any type of polarized idea like I'm independent. No, because the moment you have independence, you're going to have it's contradicting sort of a rubber band polarized paradoxical idea of dependence, right? If you meet somebody who's independent, and this, I find this happens to women way more often. I mean, men have had to go off and take care of families throughout history. They were burdened with war. They were burdened with being the breadwinners of the entire family. Women had their burdens, but this was the burden, the big burden of men. So it's not something that you kind of look at, oh, I got to go and be independent. But the females are now more, I've got to be independent and I don't want to be dependent. So to trigger a female in a second, you can trigger this idea that, you're not independent.
Oh yeah.
Oh God.
I did it to one of my girlfriends in the car the other day. So yeah.
Do you have the example that you could bring up just to clarify?
We were actually talking about how to. It was a complex situation. I was talking to her about how to talk to a guy to tell him that she liked him, and so we got into a conversation about kind of things we've talked about on our podcast about making him feel masculine. And so we started looking at that masculine feminine thing, and then she was like getting triggered because she's like, but I'm independent, and da 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 da. I was like, okay.
Right. And of course, independence is not a masculine or feminine trait either, which is so interesting.
Yeah.
Yet so many women will associate it with it because they've associated this. I'm just being very generalizing.
Yeah, always.
But there's a general trend that independence and money making have been conjoined. They've been conflated, right? When they don't really have anything to do with each other, but you could make a lot of conflations throughout history. If I have enough money, I can go off and I can live on my own. So obviously it's conflated. Yeah. But someone secure, right? When I see a really secure woman whose husband is paying for everything and she takes care of the kids and the home, and you just see this super masculine guy who goes out and does things, and you've got this woman who does basically the nurturing aspect. It's phenomenal. There's just no pathology in there. When it comes to that kind of living, I don't see a trigger. But then there's some women who are completely triggered by, the idea of staying home and taking care of the family, as though it's subservient. Because there are men out there. There's a guy I used to listen to. I haven't listened to him in a while. It's Stéphane Molineux, and he remained at home while his wife went out and was a breadwinner, and he raised their daughter, and now he's got his own radio show, and it's posted on YouTube. He's very interesting. He does a lot on, some people have controversy with him. I don't really care. I just like looking at different information.
Yeah, just information.
There's another thing. If you go online, how much the mind gets so obsessed with what you listen to instead of, taking what you want merit out of what you listen to. Yeah. So these are things we're working with in BreakThrough. It's a shift in perspective on conflict. you know, we could talk for hours about, hey, you know, listen to different sides, listen to people you disagree with. But oftentimes we can't. And when it comes closer to home, like you're having an argument with your partner, these things can be so catalyzing because they catalyze the wound from childhood. And that wound is an identity. So one of the things that I would say, I think I'm quoting Esther, I'm not 100% sure, but we will find an identity no matter how terrible that identity is. As long as we have one, we don't like to be without one. You know, we can sit around and play lip service to this whole idea of I am that I am, and you know, I'm a being having an experience. We like to talk in these very airy-fairy terms, and then 2 seconds later, our identities are triggered, right? Something catalyzes us into this massive overreaction because somebody, you know, said your name wrong, or assumed you didn't know something, or assumed you didn't know something, right? How quickly these things happen, right? They're very fast. You know, some triggers that I know is someone well, we just did one where someone assuming that you're not someone making a statement that would catalyze the idea of being independent or not being independent. There could be a catalyst of someone saying, oh, that's a really strange idea you have. I'm not saying you would be catalyzed by that statement. It's a possible catalyst. You need to think of your own catalysts. But one trigger could be, that's a funny statement, right? It could trigger someone into, I'll give you an example. I was receiving a source point treatment, and I know he'll know who he is if he listens to this. But, you know, I'm receiving the source point treatment, and at one point you scan the body to see where there's a block. And of course I've got, you know, all kinds of pains, except I don't have any pain right here. So he puts his hands here, and I said, oh, so what are you doing there? He goes, well, there's a block here. And I'm like, that's a weird place for a block. And in my head, I'm thinking, you know, of all places in my body,
it's the one bit that works.
Yeah, it's like, why would there be a block there? Just trying to figure it out. My mind was just going, wow, this is so interesting. You know, it's so weird. Like, what a strange place. And of course, an hour later, I was down at his place teaching, and he says, oh, I need to do a breakthrough on what you said, Terryann, you know.
Oh, yeah.
I think that class I triggered almost every one of the students.
Excellent. That's partly your job sometimes.
Well, almost every one of them did a breakthrough
on you
in relationship to a story. Like, wow, I've never been in a class that was so, you know, so ready to work with me catalyzing them. And it's such innocuous things, right?
Yeah.
So hopefully whoever's out there.
Ada's got a question.
Oh, okay.
So how does one identify triggers in the other person without triggering them?
Well, my first question would be, why do you want to identify a trigger in another person? This is an interesting
Can we define what a trigger is for a minute?
What's that?
Would it be useful to define what a trigger is?
A catalyst.
Okay.
Anything that catalyzes you. So we've already got that it's a catalyst. The catalyst will go down to an identity, the wound that we have in childhood. Right? So our belief systems are a little bit different. Our beliefs are basically, the way I look at them, is they're the defenses that keep my wound in place. Right? So there's the wound not in place. I want to hide it from myself.
Yeah.
So if somebody triggers me, and let's say my wound is I am stupid, and here I am an adult, and behind me, let's pretend I have all these PhDs,
certificates,
50 PhDs behind me, because I needed to prove all of my life that I wasn't stupid, so I'm smart. And then someone says, you know, Terryann, that sounds really funny what you're saying, and it would trigger I am stupid. And I would go into, do you know I have 50 PhDs? I've won the Nobel Prize, you know. So you better just take what I have to say So you wouldn't be able to question them. So
I think maybe what Banner may be asking is like, how do you work out what the wounds are for someone without triggering them? How do you find them?
Well, it's a 2-day experience.
It's a 2-day course. You have to come here.
Well, it's a 2-day and an evening experience to get through that and begin your journey on identifying triggers. So, Banner, I've been doing this since 1995, and I'm still learning how to identify triggers. So, I don't think it would be very difficult for you to notice something that triggers someone. What we do in BreakThrough is we use a story. So everyone believes their story. They believe the story is true. They believe it's factual, when we know it's only a perspective. And usually a perspective. So what we'll do in BreakThrough is go through what conflict is and what your defenses are. So once you start to see your defenses, you can see that the whole story is a defense against seeing what's really going on in yourself. So the way it's identified is, here's your whole life. We hone down onto a little tiny story, one moment, like a postcard in your life, and you tell that story in the present tense, right? There's an induction process you would go through. You would tell it, and then the leader would be the one whose intuition identifies the trigger. Now, it's not about whether the trigger is right or wrong, by the way. It's about the interaction between the leader and the person blaming. The blamer is the person telling the story. So that interaction could bring up a particular trigger, because you could have many triggers in a story. Of course, the more experienced you are, you're probably going to hone in on a trigger that takes the person a little bit deeper. But whether it's surface or deep, it doesn't really matter till it does, right? If Eloise leads me through 100 breakthroughs, and she's got a certain level of doing breakthroughs and she's not receiving breakthroughs, I might just go, hey, maybe it's time I switch to Esther and go to Esther, and Esther might lead me to a deeper place. So yes, experience counts, right? My experience, the way I led breakthrough in 2000 and what year was it? 2005 is, did I say 1995 before 2005?
Maybe, but
Sorry, I meant 2005.
It's close.
It would be very different than the way I lead breakthrough today. And believe me, it's not a system that is stagnant. It is constantly evolving. So we're always learning how to identify better and better triggers within a story. So that's a lot of fun, Batter. We really do a lot. Now, the interesting thing is, once they start a process, the trigger does trigger them. But because they're already in the treatment, they want that trigger to happen. It's very gentle, very delicate. So if I give them a trigger that doesn't trigger them, they don't like it. They're like, no, find one better that triggers me.
Yeah.
So that way we're catalyzing the wound, and they'll be able to get a little bit deeper. So that's an interesting thing that you might not know. If you're just running around identifying people's triggers, you'll obviously trigger them. But somebody volitionally coming to say, help me find my trigger, I want a better trigger, then I'm picking for myself. They're going to be very happy to do it. I do this almost daily, right? I do sessions daily. So people just love it, and they want me to do better. They want me to study. They want me to be better at my job. So, and how to identify identities? We don't do that. We actually, once we've got the trigger, there's a series of questions we go through, and it kind of elicits the identity. And once they get there, it's a very gentle movement. So they're not triggered. Maybe other techniques could trigger them, but they don't get triggered by that. The only thing that would trigger the individual is you're looking for the trigger that does catalyze them. that actually we're using the word cringe now. So if we can
Ooh,
find
I like
really,
that. Cringe.
yeah, me too. The word cringe is really working nicely. So when we find a trigger that is the cringiest, and they love it, they go, "Ooh, that one really makes me cringe." Because don't forget, somebody coming to do a breakthrough wants this pain to be gone, wants this suffering to be
People
gone,
want that pain.
and wants this conflict. This is the word we use in breakthrough, but I like to say conflict. It's pain, it's suffering. I want it gone. I just need it gone. Just take me through.
Yeah.
Now, you also asked, somebody asked, so how long does a breakthrough take to complete? I don't go over an hour. I used to, because I was a little bit, naive about that. You don't go over an hour because it taxes the nervous system. If someone's done it a couple of times, it could take you 20 minutes to 40 minutes to maybe an hour.
We have spent a night in a restaurant doing about 10 in a row.
Yes, we have. In my crazy days when I could stay up very late. But not to say that I wasn't in a course this year, and we stayed up till 10 o'clock at night, and they had me going, doing one breakthrough after another. So, yeah, they don't need to take long. They really, really don't. It's a swift process. It just goes in, gets to the point, and it's only when someone cannot get out of their defenses, when they stay in the defense. So can we just kind of make a little list of what defenses look like?
There's the bird on your microphone, by the way.
There's a bird on my microphone.
Is your bird on your microphone?
No.
Oh, okay, that's fine then.
He's just on the screen, but not on the microphone.
Oh, it's what we can hear then, yeah.
Oh, you can hear his little, he's being a little rat, yes. Okay, so defenses. So I'm not going to go through conflict, but in this case, let's take a peek at what are some of our defenses. So, I know all the answers to these things. If you guys could just kind of type in, Eloise, go ahead, or just say something that you see. I mean,
when we start justifying.
Okay, I'm like justifying.
Oh, the screen's gone blue again.
Yeah, he's just at that
he
time.
Really wants to play.
Go to sleep. It's sleepy time. You see, he wants to be.
Okay, yeah.
Look at that. You see a little bump there?
Yeah, bump.
It's like a tumor. Yeah. He goes in my armpit. Sure, accusations. Yeah. Sure. Arguing, accusations. So what's part of our accusations and arguing? Blame. Exactly. Sure, we accuse, we blame. And when we blame, what happens to us? If I blame you, what does that mean?
Well, then I'm right and they're wrong.
I am right and you are wrong. That's also there, right? I lose power, right? Exactly. So we become the victim, right? So one of the things we always look at is victim blame. Both sit together, right? So if I blame you or I blame myself, it doesn't really matter. Either way, I become a victim. These two have to go together. They're like, hand in glove, right? And the minute I blame something, I'm the victim. Oh, I blame the government. I blame this. Well, now I'm its victim, right? Yeah. Terrible ways of looking at the world. Sure, go ahead. I love having men on because the list comes up quite quickly.
I feel like singing a lullaby to your bird.
I just kiss him, so he behaves a little bit, but he's just spoiled. Aww. Now he's going for the coffee. So what are some other things? So we also justify, we avoid, we blame. I'm right, you're wrong. You become the victim.
The victim, the martyr.
Martyr. Change topic, good one. Yes, change topic. It's really good.
So it's snowing today.
Divert. Yeah. Divert. No, these are all really good things.
Yeah.
These are all mechanisms we use to defend. Sure.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
We go around in circles as well, and we're looking, especially if you're telling a story, you're looking for people to go, yes, you're right.
So we look for allies, right?
Yeah, allies. Yeah.
Allies. And alibis, right? Alibis too.
You saw what happened.
Yeah, self-pity is a big one. Yeah, self-pity, feel sorry for me. Invade someone, like I'm going to convince you that my story is the story. It's so like, listen to me, what a jerk my husband is, right? And boy, are we ever triggered when someone turns around and goes, well, he sounds pretty logical. You know, you were being kind of irrational. It's like, how dare you call me irrational? And all the women band around, and then now their nails come out and claw you, right? Come on, let's claw you to death.
Because that happens every day.
Well,
you know what I mean, clawed to death.
I don't think that I've ever been in a group clutch with women where those nails don't come out.
Yeah, true.
To rip apart some man in their lives, like men, even just that statement, men, right? Men. That was a big deal, during the 60s and post 60s, and now it's sort of become a given, like men, like something's wrong with our wonderful.
Yeah, it's bonkers.
Like, come on, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, grow up. That's one thing that Breakthrough's about is freeing ourselves from these confines. And of course, it gives us the opportunity then, once we're free, to be able to better work with people, which is fascinating outcome, right? It's not like freedom is a place that rebels against structure. Freedom allows you to use structure to your benefit, because you don't want to be without structure. One of the fascinating things is try and live without structure. Get up tomorrow morning and do this for a month. Have no structure, no time that you get up, no set time to get up, no set time to go to bed, no set meals, no set job, no set nothing. What do you think is going to happen in a month?
Chaos.
Well, depression sets in.
Oh, yeah. We
become depressed very quickly. So it lets us know that, okay, we need a certain amount of structure. One of the things that when there's depression, that's one of the first things to set up is give that person a structure. Make sure you get up at the same time, you go to bed at the same time, you're eating your regular meals, you're eating properly. That's gonna be the first starting point, right? To gaining health. That's one of the techniques out there. So yeah, we need that structure. So we're free to use structures. Right? This is the interesting part about freeing or breaking the spell of the mind, is that you're able to use everything. And you're no longer, I remember when I was so triggered by everything, even just the idea of, oh no, I don't want to learn anymore. I don't want to have any more come into me because I can't handle it anymore. Now it's like, oh, it comes in and goes out. It's not like I have to retain it. I think somehow I thought I had to retain it. I don't know what all my beliefs were that were connected to too much information. But there were definitely ideas linked to too much information. So let's just summarize a little bit here. So we've got
tweet.
We've got tweet. Yes, he's going to be done. It's
definitely wants to join in.
This time of day is really all about mommy. Lay down and make me go to sleep on your chest. That's what he does. So, okay, so breakthrough is a shift in perspective on conflict. We know we acquire these wounds or identities in childhood. Then during our lives, we build up this whole structure of defense mechanisms, no matter how we use them, all the ones we've brought up. Thank you, Ray. The bird needs to give up the coffee. Yes, he
Yeah,
does.
you missed the beginning where the bird was drinking the coffee.
Yeah, it's drinking the coffee. It's just so we're going to have all these defense mechanisms that, defense, there's also dynamics, right? Analysis isn't necessarily a defense mechanism, denial would be, but analysis can be one of the, like analysis, justification, looking for allies and alibis can be all the dynamics of defense, the way we go about defending ourselves. So analysis can be a big one. I don't think we've written that one down, but it is a huge one. So yeah, where was I going with this? I was trying to
logicize.
So we've got our defenses, we've got our wounds, and of course that's going to limit our freedoms. It's going to create the paradoxical thinking, and we also believe our thoughts, which is the spell of the mind, right? We hear thoughts and we believe them to be real. We often look at a thought, and I deal with this every day, where someone has a thought and then they sit around 4 hours analyzing the thought. They actually want me to listen to their analysis of the thought. And I'm like, no, I'm not listening to that. That's just a bunch of thoughts about thoughts. It's not interesting at all. What you want to do is get to what exactly is keeping, what exactly keeps these beliefs in place? Well, it's just not seeing them, which is what I originally was alluding to, is that as soon as we shed light on our beliefs, they shift, right?
Yeah.
Just shedding light. I'm just, he's being a little, come here, Woody Woodpecker.
Woody Woodpecker.
So, yeah, as soon as we shed light on something that we haven't seen. So remember, I was alluding to these paradoxical beliefs that we have, and we don't notice them. We can. There's a teacher that I used to love. His name is Gurdjieff. He's obviously dead now, but this teacher would use an exercise called remembering ourselves. And he said, people can walk into a particular personality and forget what they said in another personality. And if you watch yourself, you'll notice it. You'll talk a certain way in one personality, and then you all of a sudden move into another one, and you can see these glimpses of, wow, I can't believe I'm a different person. When I would do, it still happens sometimes when I'm talking to family is a different personality than when I'm doing breakthrough, right? So I love the idea that the more that I do breakthrough and I've broken the spell of the mind, I become more consistent, meaning I'm just a human being having an experience rather than a defended persona, right? Oh, in breakthrough, I'm really very, very cool. And, I've got my crap together. And then when I go off into my personal life, I'm losing my mind because everything's triggering me, right?
That would be insane.
Somebody said that it's a good idea to, I think it's Scott Adams, he said it's a good idea to be humiliated once in a while. You get practiced at being humiliated. I can't tell you that over the years of doing breakthrough and being so, being there on top of things, doing it, and the humiliation of going home after and being a total triggered idiot, right? Trigger, and then going back and, teaching, and people would say, oh, Terryann, you've got your shit together. I'm like, no, I don't. No. Now it's a little different. The spell of the mind is broken, but I don't have everything obviously down pat. There's a lot more to figure out. Now, in my curiosity is, how does this machine work that I live in? How does this how does any of it work? How do we function? And what are better ways to help people? So, you have a greater curiosity. So yes, we're kind of subject to all of these thoughts, and we think they are real. So we have to write them down. We have to have somebody questioning us. Well, that's the best process, I think, is be questioned so you can. And now in BreakThrough, we actually write the question and the answer. Not that that would make much sense to you, but all of your answers are written down. They're capitalized. So you're actually looking straight up at a chart. Or if you did it on Skype, you're looking at, oh my God, I just said that.
Yeah.
Right? I just said that. And you think, wow, look at all of the contradictions I'm making. Right? And it just clarifies things. There's no trigger in the question, or you don't get upset. You're just answering and you're like, wow, yeah, I can see how the mind works. And by the end, you're just free of what the hold of whatever this wound is, or your belief systems. So Batter's saying, so does stress reduce the threshold for triggers, or are they always present regardless of one's mood, circumstances, assuming we find the right trigger? Look, your story's going to trigger you. Obviously, if you have more stress, you're going to be triggered. My experience
in day-to-day life, if you're living day-to-day life and you're really stressed, then you do explode more when you get triggered.
Yeah. Or implode, or avoid, or take more sedatives, drink more, right? Smoke up more, do whatever it is people do, sleep more, or just keep doing more work. So yeah, stress is definitely going to change how you're triggered, or the times that you're triggered. But a lot of people will tell me, oh, I was so triggered yesterday, but I woke up this morning after a good night's sleep and the triggers are gone. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. And we don't do a breakthrough. And then a week later, they're like, I had a feeling, Terryann, you were suspicious that I was still triggered. Well, I am. So we work on it again. So sometimes sleep.
Until you get to the trigger and you don't clear it, but you kind of get rid of the trigger that's triggering you, then it's always going to get triggered.
Yeah, it's the wound. If you don't expose beliefs and the wound, you'll always be triggered because that wound is still there. Sleep is not going to make your trauma or wound go away.
It doesn't make your problems
It doesn't do
go
that.
away. Yeah.
No. Vacation doesn't do it. It might delay the next time the wound is triggered because you're rested, but okay, so Batter, here's a really good story, my favorite story. So when I was in my 20s, I used to meditate 8 hours a day, and I worked the rest of the time. I worked in a factory, but I went home and all of the sleep hours were sitting in meditation. I think I laid down 20 minutes during the night and then just got up 4 a.m., went straight to my work. And I was doing this for years. And I also, meditating on white light and all these things. I mean, there were a million different things I was doing. And I was walking with my sister one day down a street in Montreal, and people were smiling at me. People came up to me to touch me. And we went in to grab like a glass of water and some coffee. And they were just looking at me really nicely and smiling. My sister just kind of went like this to my face, pulls me over and says, what's going on with you? You've got some kind of magic thing that I want to have. Everybody's so happy with you. I would like that. I would like to have that. And I did this. Now you'll see how arrogant this is, Batter. Well, Ray too. Like, it was just so arrogant. I went, you know what? I think I did it. I think I made it. But I had never verbalized this out loud, but this was my sister, so I felt, really comfortable to verbalize it. I said, I think I did it. I think I've gotten rid of all my triggers. I
All of
think
them.
I've been enlightened. I think I did it. Like nothing bothers me. Everywhere I go, people want to touch me. It's like so cool. And she's like, I could see it. It's so cool. So here I had an ally as well, right? So she could see it in me. It was like wonderful. I'm living in this idyllic state. And I don't know, not much later, maybe a month or so later, my mom comes home. She'd been living away for quite a few years, and here she comes back, and she said, oh, come on over. So, I Zoom over, really ready to show her this new me, all enlightened. I get to the door. I haven't even stepped quite inside. The door to the house opens up, and she's sitting across at a chair, and I see her face. I'm like, hey, Mom. And she looks at me and she goes, oh, what's wrong? And I fall into a puddle of complete and total overreaction. I'm like, what do you mean what's wrong? Nothing's wrong with me. Can't you see it? It was over. And I'll tell you, I was 32 years old. That's 28 years ago. And I just sat there and said, I'm not seeking enlightenment anymore. That's it. I'm done with this. That was baloney. I worked so hard. I meditated 8 to sometimes, 12 hours a day. I was doing all my spiritual crazy exercises and, light things and all kinds of stuff that I was doing, and affirmations and Om Mani Padme Hum chanting and just about everything, and complete and utter, smack in my face failure. So yeah, it didn't work. It just didn't work. I had to really see, what the triggers were inside. Obviously, my mother has a habit of saying that. Her habit is, what's wrong? She doesn't say, how are you? She says, what's wrong?
Yeah.
So why should that trigger me? If that's her habit, why should it trigger me? If she sees someone and goes, hey, what's wrong? She thinks it's caring and loving. And of course, me as her daughter didn't see it as caring and loving, thought of it as a challenge to say that, you should see me as someone who looks really great and I'm fine and everything's working out well. And here she was telling me I'm not okay. So right away, triggered. So yeah, no, now it doesn't bother me. She'll say, what's wrong? And I'm like, I just say nothing, just nothing. So it's fascinating. You cannot just necessarily work yourself out of a trigger. So I hope that helps. And what is this? Our triggers are always the same. No, the trigger brings, yes, the trigger does catalyze the wound, and then you'll defend it. Once you start seeing this work, oftentimes you'll be triggered and you'll notice that you're going into the defense mechanism. So you won't analyze, you won't do anything. You'll just say, I need to call my breakthrough, or I just need to call someone for a breakthrough. So some people don't even go into that whole thing. So everything changes, right? You want to blame someone, but you've done this work. Even this lecture, some people listen to this talk and go, you know what, since that talk, I don't do this anymore. I realized right away I need to figure out who's going to work with me, right? Got it. Great, Batter. Thanks. So do you have any other questions? I think I was a little bit hyperactive, eh? I had a few too many coffees.
That was the bird mirroring you.
Yeah, the bird was like, well, you see what he wants, right?
Yeah.
Like, he just wants me to cuddle him. Is he just the cutest thing ever? Is he just so adorable? Sorry, I'm obsessed with this guy. I'm like, look at him. He just wants cuddles. Look at that. Sorry. Okay. So any other questions, or is that good? I think that was an exciting talk.
Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah. Okay, good. I can't think of anything. Thank you, Ray. Thank you so much. But if you have any questions, yeah, let me know. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we're good. It was a good summation.
I think we're good. I think I like that. Well, we've got another webinar on the 15th of April.
Oh, we do. Okay.
Yeah, we've got a third one. Woo! Yeah. Woo. And what we were hoping to do the breakthrough class here in the UK at the beginning of June. But obviously, with everything going on at the moment, we'll play it by ear and see what happens. We might get a few more webinars in. Who knows? You come a bit later.
There you go.
We'll see.
Do some of the work that way. So the 15th of April is the next one?
Yes, the 15th of April.
Okay.
At 8 p.m. UK time. Don't know why you don't have that in your diary.
No, I didn't have it in the diary for some reason.
I'm glad I mentioned it then.
Now it's in. So by then it'll be 3 o'clock my time instead.
Well, yeah, our clocks will have changed by then.
Okay, so I think we did a good job on that.
Yeah. Well, thanks everybody. Yeah, I'll keep you all posted with the.
Thanks so much, Ray, for your nice smile and your thumbs up, and Batter, thanks so much for your questions. So helpful.
Thanks for your contribution, gang.
Yes, and if you need to ask anything and we'll clarify it next time, please let us know.
Yeah, just drop me an email and I'll get the questions answered. Hopefully we'll see you on the...
goodbye too.
Oh, hopefully we'll see you on the 15th of April for another round. And we'll see what comes up. And yeah, it's a 2.5 day course. So the plan was to run it the evening of the 5th and the 6th and the 7th of June, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, Batter, we're just discussing what we could do about getting this course to be online.
Yeah, because we've got quite a few courses planned at the moment, and obviously we've had to cancel them all, and it would be nice to do some of them online.
It's just that we have one little well, there's two concerns. Is that one is in person. Is it essential that you're in person so that you're initiated to the work? That's one big question. So Esther and I are going back and forth, kind of debating that to see if that's really essential. And the second one is, during the course, people have to go off in groups. And this is going to be kind of difficult online. So we need to assess how we're going to do that, is going into groups.
Yeah.
So that's in the thought process now, figuring out how we would.
Yeah, there is a solution for that.
I'm sure there is, but maybe you could help me out on
techiness, I can sort that out.
Techiness, great. Good. I love that. Because it would be great if we could do this online, you know?
Yeah, that'd be really great.
No venue, no cold room, no switching the heat and the cold on, and the standing.
You have to leave your birds.
I have to leave my birds, yes. So it would be really nice to do it that way. But if you have a solution on that,
cool.
Let me know.
Okay, gang. Well, we'll call it a night for this evening. Thank you all for joining in. Thanks to everyone anyone watching the recording afterwards. Drop me an email with any of your questions. info@eloiseansell.com, and we'll catch up with you for the next webinar on the 15th of April. Okay. Night, everyone.
Bye.